Very first motorcycles for my kids, so it's time to prepare my kids and the motorcycles for the track. The motorcycles are Chinese pit bikes, 125cc motorcycles. They are basically little dirt bikes, copies of a Honda, and then we set the bikes up for track riding on go-kart tracks. So basically they're set up like little supermoto bikes. We put 12-inch rims on them and some PMT slicks, so they'll be set up for the track. Those were the only modifications. And so once we had the bike set up and the kids geared up with their leathers, helmets, boots, gloves, we had them ride the motorcycles outside the shop just to get a feel for the motorcycles, the clutch, shifting, get a feel for what the power is like, using the brakes. And then once they got comfortable being on the motorcycles and getting a general idea of how they work, we took to the parking lot and we set up our little track at the parking lot. And this gave the kids an opportunity to put the motorcycles through some turns and to accelerate and slow down for turns, use the brakes, and just get a feel for how the motorcycles work on somewhat of a track. And I showed the kids both a foot out riding style and a foot on the peg riding style. And so here you can see they're both doing the foot out riding style, and then my daughter decided she preferred to keep her foot on the peg. So I taught her the body position for riding with her foot on the peg. And mind you, these kids, they're 13 and 14 years old. My daughter's 13, my son's 14. They have no riding experience. These are their very first motorcycles, and this is just practice and just getting comfortable with the motorcycle. So we did some drills like this to get them comfortable with leaning the motorcycles over and getting a feel for the traction of the tires and getting an idea of body position. And so I was going to say that their body position isn't perfect, and here you can see my daughter developed her own riding style. So they're gonna have to get more ride time on the motorcycles and then kind of settle into what they're comfortable with. And then once we find out what they're comfortable with as far as riding style, then we can start tweaking it and improving it. And so here we are at the track. And once I felt like my kids were doing well in the parking lot and they're comfortable on the motorcycles, we took to the track. So at first I had them follow me on the track, and the goal was to show them the racing line. I showed them on paper how the racing line works, and there's video games where my son, he already knew the racing line from video games, but out on the track it's so important for them to understand the racing line, and it's important for the kids to know that they need to stick to the racing line, because as you can see in this video, I'm following my daughter now, and the video is sped up. Obviously she's not actually going this fast, but you can see that there's other motorcycles occasionally passing her, and it's so important for new riders to stick to their riding line, the racing line, and let the faster people get around them. You don't want to make a sudden move and accidentally move in front of a much bigger, much faster motorcycle that's trying to pass you. And so they did pretty good. We went a few laps, but it doesn't always go perfect. Sometimes you go a little fast, go a little wide, and there's my daughter hitting the dirt, going off the track. Pretty graceful crash. She didn't panic, not a big deal at all. We just helped her get the bike back up, started up, and then back on the track she went. And here she is approaching that same turn that she crashed in. So it wasn't a big deal. She learned from her mistake, and because of the riding gear, she wasn't injured. It was a graceful fall. And here she goes, getting more seat time on the bike, and she continued to improve throughout the day, which was really fun to see. And now this is my son with the black and blue leathers here, and as you can see, he stuck to the foot out riding position. For me personally, on supermotos, I prefer the foot out riding position as well, It doesn't really matter to me which riding style my kids adopt. I just want them to choose the riding style that they're most comfortable with, and then as time goes on, we'll tweak the riding style and slowly make improvements. So I followed my daughter here long enough. She's doing really well, and I'm about to let her go on her own. Little elbow bump right there by accident. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I can't tell what face she's making under that visor, but she probably wasn't too happy about the elbow bump. And so I chased down my son so I could follow him for a while and check his riding style, make sure he's following that racing line. And here you can see, he sets up wide and he comes in, he apexes, and that faster motorcycle is able to get by him because he's riding predictably. He's following the racing line, and so the other rider knew where to pass him, and there was no issue. So I was really happy that the kids pretty much understood the racing line, and for the most part, they stuck to it, and there were no issues. And on top of that, all the riders at the Santa Maria kart track, which is where we are here, all those faster riders were very respectful. It's a tight little group of motorcycle riders that hit the track every month, and everyone's really nice and respectful, so it makes it a very enjoyable experience for us as a family to take our bikes out to that track and ride. And it's just really fun watching my kids slowly improve and just enjoy themselves out there on their motorcycles, just having a good time. The Chinese pit bikes my kids are riding worked out really well, but just be aware if you go that route, you'll have to go through every nut and bolt on the bike and make sure everything's tight and secure, Loctite, and just make sure that the bikes are solid before you ever put your kids on them. Right here, my son is about to pass one of my friends who has a lot more riding experience than my son does. This goes to show you how some bike setup and a little riding instruction goes a long way.
Okay, your kids are rad, bro. Yeah. They're both like leaving me in the dirt. It's embarrassing. How old are you?